Hey, I hope you're a big fan of Rick and Morty because if you are and wanted to see my thoughts on season 5, here's my review of every episode of season 5. Yeah, this was definitely an episode. So, I'm aware I'm going to come off as a hater in this video, but trust me, I'm not. I've been watching Rick and Morty for I don't know how long, since 2018 it feels like. I've binged the first 3 seasons, watched season 4 while it was premiering, and I have now watched the first episode of season 5, and I personally think that this is just a bad episode with one redeeming quality about it. Rick and Morty is a popular cartoon sitcom series. It started off in 2013 by Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland. It follows the adventures of Rick Sanchez and Morty Smith as they go on multiple sci-fi adventures. Seasons 1 through 3 is where they saw the rise in popularity, with 3 being the peak of it. I would personally say after season 3 is where a slight decline starts to form within the next seasons. But I guess we'll get into that with this one. Now it's time for season 5 episode 1. Was it good? No, it wasn't. It just wasn't. And here's why. Sex jokes. It's literally just sex jokes. That's all this episode had to it. It feels like a generic adult show that's targeting a teen demographic for some reason, because it's literally just sex jokes and swearing. Oh my god, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen. The story revolves around Mr. Nimbus, who's Rick's nemesis, I guess? They just established him as Rick's long outstanding nemesis when this is his first appearance. Great. I don't like the character. I just don't. I really don't like the character. He's just this oddly erotic guy. At this point, you could have just brought back the dragon because they served the same points, I feel like. The episode just revolved around Rick trying to please him. The best part of this episode was the world that they established within the portal, which was this world where time went by faster in it, kind of like it did in Invincible. It was a culture that grew wanting to destroy Morty, and every time they saw him, he killed a couple of people and changed their families, destroyed their families for the worse. If there's one thing that Rick and Morty does really well, is randomly establishing new worlds or new species of people. They did it with the snakes, and they did it with those parasite things. Both of those randomly come to my mind because they were the last things we saw within the 4th season. But the rest of the episode just revolved around Mr. Nimbus being erotic and weird, Beth and Jerry just being horny, and Morty and Jessica trying to sleep together. Speaking of Beth though, where the hell is the second Beth? Did something happen? Why wouldn't they tell us if something happened? Rick and Morty is known for changing the family dynamic at the end of every season, basically speaking now. And they did that within the last season by introducing the 2 Beths. They decided they were both going to stay there and raise the family. But now they're just not there? It's just one Beth now? Is this another dimension, another universe or something? Explain yourself. I really hope you touch on that, and putting this as episode 1 was maybe a mistake, because oh god, this doesn't feel like a good premiere episode to me. It really doesn't. Oh, and it ended with Jessica being all knowing and now refers to herself as a time god. Yay. Overall though, I did not like this episode. As a premiere episode, it definitely could have been better. It felt more like an episode that would have come in the middle of the season rather than at the beginning. Every other season premiere was good to great. This just felt awkward to look at on TV in a living room, honestly speaking. It was easier just putting on my headphones and watching it on YouTube since they uploaded it on there as well. With these episodes being episodic, if you haven't seen this one yet, don't watch it. You can honestly skip it. You won't miss a single thing. And trust me, guys, I don't have a problem with episodic shows. I really don't have a problem with episodic stuff. The second half of season 4 was great. It was great. The second half of season 4, I really enjoyed it. It felt like they kind of went back to the beginning, kind of, sort of, but added some new twist onto it. But this just wasn't it. The first half of season 4 wasn't it, and this wasn't it as well. I really hope there's some nice episodes in here, but for now, it's not a good start for this season. But yeah, that's basically it. I'm sorry if this wasn't as positive you would have liked it to be, but I did not like this episode. Just sex joke after sex joke after another sex joke, with one redeeming quality about it, which was that world. Like, I just didn't like it. Nobody seemed really good in here. Everybody just seemed like a shittier version of their previously established characters. Again, where was the second Beth? That's really annoying me now that I started thinking about it at the end. Like, the season premiere should feel bigger. It honestly should. But this just feels like it's, like I said earlier, it just feels like it should have been in the middle of the season rather than at the beginning or the end, because those are where you're supposed to, like, grab everybody's attention. It's like, yes, we're here, we're back. And like this big thing happens at the beginning. But no, nothing happened. It's not that I have a problem with sex jokes and swearing. They can be funny sometimes. But I don't know, just I just felt like I was being dumbed down to, basically speaking. Like, you'll laugh at this because we say we watch porn. You'll laugh at this because we say we're horny. You'll laugh at this because we say we want a threesome. You'll laugh at this because we say shit and fuck a lot. But that's not what makes Rick and Morty funny. It's not. It's not even clever in the slightest, honestly speaking. If this is what we're gonna get for the next couple of seasons, I'm gonna end up stopping watching Rick and Morty. And I really wanted to try to do this episode 1 review, episode 2 review, episode 3, but if this is what I'm gonna get for season 5, I'm not gonna do it. I'm genuinely not. Well, maybe I will. I don't know. But yeah, that's it. My god, this was such a good episode. Why wasn't this the first episode? The duality of Rick and Morty is such an interesting one. It could start off with the Mr. Nimbus episode, no callbacks, no references to any previous episodes. It's just, this episode, here and now, you're gonna have to take it for what it is. But this episode, it had name drops, references, callbacks. We saw the president again. I don't think we've seen the president since season 3. And we saw Space Beth at the end. It's mwah. Chef's kiss of an episode. Should have been the premiere. Chef's kiss of an episode. This episode has everything I could ever want from an episode. So let's go ahead and talk about it. The plot to this story is, there are decoys who make other decoys to prevent killer decoys from killing the said decoy's family. It's such a simple plot line, but it works so well. When someone says Rick and Morty is a sci-fi comedy, this should be one of the episodes stated when making said statements. They play with the clone trope that's known in a lot of sci-fi stuff to the most absurd degree they possibly can. And this isn't even the first time we've seen multiple Rick and Mortys and the rest of the families interact with each other. They've already established multiple universes, multiple timelines. They could have done all of that, but they decided to stick with clones. There's even a bunch of Rick and Mortys that live together in their own place, which I hope we get back to one day. I really hope we get back to one day. Jesus Christ, please let us get back to that place one day. This episode even gives us sentimental moments between Rick and Beth, where Rick apologizes for the things he does. We don't see that in normal episodes. This is a good episode. My god. One of the things I do want to mention though is that this almost feels like it was made because people were wondering, oh, is this the Beth clone? Did Beth accept the clone thing? Oh my god, which Beth is which? I never know. I don't know. Oh my god. It feels like this was made for that reason. Now you don't know if the entire family's real or not. Haha. Congrats! Now you get to ask yourself even more questions. They don't want this show to have a plot line. I don't remember how many times Rick and Morty has hopped through to multiple universes. I think it's only happened once where they replaced the said Rick and Morty of that place. But the creators, they can do that anytime they want. They can set an episode for different dimensions Rick and Morty without us even knowing, because they still look and act like the same people we all know. Hell, each episode so far could be that if they didn't reference the said Rick to be C-137's Rick. Overall, this episode was good. It may be even great. There's not much else I can say other than that. I need more episodes like this, more sci-fi adventures, more things played to a level of absurdity that's not just sex jokes and fart jokes. It doesn't have to continue an overall story to be good. This is an example of that. This is one of the good comedy episodes that I was mentioning. If they want to go back to an episodic format, more episodes like this and the ones from the second half of season 4 is a good way to go about it. I just did not like the Mr. Nimbus episode. I genuinely just did not. But that's basically it. I feel happy. Oh my god, I feel so much happier than I did last week with the first episode review. My god, I'm smiling. I'm smiling. Thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think about this episode, and I'll reply to you in the comments. I will. Yeah, I'm so happy that this is a good episode. Oh my god, I'm so happy that this is a good episode. It almost leaves me nothing to talk about though, so that's more negative episodes maybe, because I need more stuff to talk about. Again, another pretty solid episode of Rick and Morty. I'm gonna run out of things to say pretty quickly. There were sex jokes in here, but they were easier to consume, a bit more tasteful than the first episode, and well, honestly, it was just the B plot of the show, so I was completely fine with it. Completely fine, way easier to consume. My god, I enjoyed this Captain Planet parody though so much. Now let's talk about this good episode of Rick and Morty. When it comes to the parodies that Rick and Morty do, they always try to add a little bit something extra, try to do a little bit of a twist, as you would. Like the Mad Max parody, Anatomy Park, the Vindicators, parody on superhero teams, etc, etc. They even did some of that episode as well. They always try to do something that will either make it funny or, I don't know, just add a little twist on here, and this kind of followed that trope. This episode doesn't take it to the next level or anything, but it does keep the good parodies going. They aged up the kids so that they're adults now, and now they basically own Planetina. Her name's Planetina, by the way. They basically own her for business purposes, and they're about to sell her off to some eastern country that has no affiliation with anybody. Nope, not anybody. That was their quote, not mine. Oh, and Planetina eventually starts taking the saving the world thing a little too far and doesn't want to. She basically kills a lot of people. Is this season's overarching thing Morty becoming more twisted and crazy than Rick? Because this is only the third episode, but it's the second time already that Morty's went on this killing rampage and killed a bunch of people, innocent or not. And he always looks super badass while doing it, and it leads me to the question, like, is he eventually going to become Evil Morty? Is it going to turn out that Evil Morty is our Morty from the future? Questions that we'll never get answers to, because it's definitely not true, and I just want to think about that. Guys, where's the game theory in there? Evil Morty is our Morty. Actually, Evil Morty's our Morty from the future. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. This episode also had this relationship going on between Morty and Planetina. It started quickly and it ended quickly. Morty was kind of morally opposed to Planetina killing off a bunch of innocent people while she's doing it under the guise of saving the planet. It does leave a bunch of questions, like, Morty, you've killed a bunch of people before, a bunch of innocent people before. Just a couple of episodes ago, you killed a bunch of innocent people because they kept, like, upgrading their stuff to want to kill you because you keep coming there and changing their lives for the worse. So, it was a bit weird, but what can you do? What can you do? Oh, and a side plot, very funny, very funny. I made a lot of jokes, a lot of giggles happening over here. Ha ha ha. Boobs. Overall, another pretty good episode. I'm not surprised that this was a good episode. It definitely was one of the ones I was anticipating the most outside of that Voltron scene from an episode later. Solid characters, no one was annoying in this episode, not even the alien that Rick was hooking up with. Good episodic story, things started and ended, so it can be back to status quo in the next episode. Nothing to hate about that. If you are wondering if you should watch this episode, go ahead. Why not? I liked it and thought it was good, so I'm pretty sure you will too. Especially if you're a Rick and Morty fan. You know, you guys like all the episodes, and don't criticize them for anything. And that goes with any fan of anything, really. So I don't know why I'm saying it. It goes for any fan of anything. I don't know why once you become like a super fan of something, you just like don't criticize it at all. That's definitely something you should not do. But yeah, that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed it. What were your opinions on Season 5, Episode 3 of Rick and Morty? I liked this episode. For right now, Season 3 is going like this. It's going like this. Well, alright. So this is Season 1. I mean, not Season 1. Oh my god. Alright. So this is Episode 1. This is Episode 2. And this is Episode 3. So I'm hoping Season 4, Episode 4. Why do I keep saying seasons? Episode 4 is going to continue the momentum and continue by the straight or plateauing. It doesn't matter. I didn't hate this episode, but it was definitely a bad episode, in my opinion, of course. It was just sperm monsters, and that's really it. Yep, that's it. Sperm monsters. It's just sperm monsters. That's it. That's it. The entire concept of this episode is that Morty saw this breeding machine at his mother's workplace, so he decides, I'm gonna use it. Oh my god, I'm a little boy, I'm gonna use it. So he does. And Rick ends up needing to use some horse semen for some things, and unknowingly it's Morty's. So he accidentally uses it and creates giant space sperm monsters things. Yep. Jesus Christ. That was the whole concept for the episode. That's it. That's it. I saw a comment on one of the promos for this episode, and the comment said this kind of reminded them of one of Morty's mind blowers. I kind of agree with that statement. Like, the thing with Morty's mind blowers and the interdimensional cable stuff, they're all ad-libbed, off the top, unscripted, improvised. That's what makes those shows stand out, and that's why they're so crazy, and it's basically anything. They could just go in the booth and say anything, and they'll end up having to animate it and come up with something to go around said unscripted lines. But this kind of feels like that. It also just feels like a throwaway script they thought would, they could rephrase into like an actual episode. Like I said though, didn't hate it. I don't think I could hate this episode because the concept of sperm monsters attacking the town, it kind of just sounds like something me and my friend would come up with as a comic idea in high school, because we used to do dumb shit like that. That's what the concept felt like to me. Now, one part that I did not like, I just absolutely fucking hated, was the incest. There was an incest joke, because to stop the giant sperm monsters, they created a giant egg based off of Summer, because they did not know it was Morty's sperm, and oh my god, it was a big incest joke. I did not like it. If that's your thing, it's fine. It just felt like, something inappropriate and most middle schooler would say. I just didn't like it. Incest isn't funny. Not funny at all. The president was in a lot of this episode as well, which is a bit surprising. I know we briefly saw him in episode 2, but this was his whole episode surrounded around the president, as well as Morty and the sperm and Rick and stuff. He hasn't been fully on an episode since the finale of season 3, which was in 2017. So, I just thought, his return would be something bigger, something larger, in a sense that is happens. Some things are bigger, some things are larger, just not the president's role in coming back. It just felt like, hey, you guys remember this character? He's back again. There you go, because remember, he's the president in this universe. Please act like you saw him in Season 4, because we know we did not use him in Season 4 at all. Overall, during times like this, I just feel too old for Rick and Morty. How do I feel too old for a show that comes on something called Adult Swim? The episode was fine to bad, not as bad as the first episode, but still around that same general area. Just felt kinda lacking. I shouldn't get that from a show, not even episodic shows. Regular show, Adventure Time, all good episodic shows, and in a lot of ways more mature than Rick and Morty. A lot of people still enjoy these episodes. I never see anything bad said about Rick and Morty, so I'm probably going to get talked down for not liking this episode that much. If you want to know if you should watch this episode or not, nah, you can honestly skip it and save yourself the trouble of sitting through this one. So there was nothing really overly positive about this episode, nor was there something overly negative about this episode. It was another middle of the road episode. That's as much as I can say about it. It's another middle of the road episode, but in this instance I'd say it was one of the good to better middle of the road episodes. So let's, after a long period of time, because it's the next week already, the next episode is going to come out either today or tomorrow, depending on when this video comes out. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about this episode, which I deemed Hellstar. Even though I think the concepts for this episode is just fine, just middle of the road, I do think this episode does something very, very perfectly. It has a perfectly balanced A plot and B plot. None of them feel more important than the other. You can see in some reviews I might talk about one story but kinda not talk about the other. While in this one, they both have the same amount of screen time in my opinion, and both have the same amount of value, so I kinda am going to give both of them their due respect. For the A-plot, I enjoyed the story of Jerry getting toyed or teased by demons, I guess. Rick was a part of this too, but he didn't necessarily feel over Jerry like he does in some other episodes. He kinda got put on Jerry's level. The demons even told him that Jerry isn't a loser by himself. He needs somebody to feel the cringe or feel the suffering along with him. And that foil to Jerry is Rick. So therefore together they are a duo of losers, a loser duo. Just like me and my friend in Fortnite. Beth even showed up and started getting in on the teasing Jerry thing. She originally came to stop it, but she ended up joining in because of course that's what happened, until Jerry found out. Now, that's not a bad thing. This wasn't a bad episode. It honestly felt very lighthearted of an episode, and honestly that's perfectly fine. I'm totally fine with the lighthearted episode. I like slice of life shows obviously, so I'm perfectly fine with that. For the B plot, it focused on Summer and Morty trying to impress this new transfer student. I forget his name, like Chuck Baxter or some dumb 90s name like that. They even gave him like a little 90s intro song for some reason. But it was fine. Apparently the dude was in a spaceship, so they went on a little space sci-fi adventure themselves within this episode. The spaceship was originally against it, but, eventually it started playing along, acting like it wanted to go with them. And then it got to do whatever it wanted, and I guess what it wanted to do was kill a bunch of Transformers? Okay. That's fine, I guess. Like I said, this was a very lighthearted episode, so nothing major really happened. Everything got put back to status quo by the end of the episode. Of course, that's what you would expect. Nothing major happened. Things just kind of started and ended at a specific time. Something I didn't write down that I'm thinking of right now is that there is a similar theme going on between both of these plots. While within the first plot is showing that Jerry and Rick are seen as losers to other people, and this one is the plot of Summer and Morty not wanting to seem like a loser to somebody. And the A plot is more of Rick trying to, I guess, getting put down a peg or two. While in this one, it was the transfer student getting put down a peg or two, and Summer and Morty kind of going up a level. Overall, like I mentioned, this episode was fine, but it felt like the first one where both the A plot and B plot were at the same level of importance. Usually in these reviews, I focus on one plot more than the other. I've already mentioned that. That's because, the importance of each one kind of depends on, I don't know, how I feel about each episode. So I try to talk about each one that I feel is important, and in this one I talked about both of them evenly because they both felt very important in this episode. The Chuck dude was cool, Jerry was Jerry, and that's all I can really say. Even the credit scene felt somewhat, satisfying. This one felt very much so like a sitcom series. If you're wondering if you should watch this episode or not, I'd say watch it. This was a good example of a middle of the road, and I'm happy about that. But that's basically it. Hope you enjoyed watching this. I love talking about these episodes. I've been watching Rick and Morty. I don't like going on these tangents a lot because I say the same thing at the end of all of them. I've been watching Rick and Morty since like 2018. I think since about 2018, where I binged the first 3 seasons and then had to wait for the 4th one, and the 5th one's now here. So it's been going quite well. On the first half of the 4th one, I didn't like blah blah blah. I've mentioned all of this before. There's nothing I can say at this point. Actually, you know what? Bye. I'm gonna be honest. Even though this is a Thanksgiving episode released in July, I really liked it. I really enjoyed myself watching this episode. It was pretty good. So let's go ahead and jump into how I feel about this episode. Honestly, having a Thanksgiving episode randomly put in here was a weird choice to make. But by the end of this episode, I thought it was a nice change of pace and it actually worked as a concept for an episode released in July. This episode focused around Rick and Morty. At the beginning, they end up destroying the Constitution, and they themselves wanted to get turned into turkeys so the president could give them a pardon. But in the process of that, actual turkeys end up getting turned into humans and try to take over the world, so Rick and the president had to work together to stop the invasion of these giggly, gobbly gustlers. This episode, just like the Spawn Monsters episode, kind of felt like a leftover from Season 3, or starting where Season 3 left off, due to the fact that Rick and the President are restarting this rivalry of pride and ego, one not wanting the other to do better than them. It's very weird, very, very weird. At this point, we might as well just be in another dimension. Like I said earlier within one of these reviews, we might as well be in another dimension because nobody mentions Rick as C-137. All of these episodes are just episodic just for the sakes of it. We might as well just be in a different dimension every episode. Their rivalry, just like some episodes within Season 3, is what caused all of this to happen, basically. If it wasn't for them trying to one-up one another, these turkeys wouldn't have turned into humans and caused this entire situation to happen. So it's basically all Rick and the President's fault, as most stuff was within Season 3. Some gags in this were funny, one being like the secret militant group that was going to get turned into turkeys to help the president out. They were these all-American Americans. Oh goodness, we're such American. We're gonna have to leave our pregnant wives behind, get in our pickup truck, and go help the president out for our country. When it comes to flaws, there's not really any flaws within this episode particularly. Most of the flaws come from Season 5 itself. Most of the seasons feel like they have this overarching story going on. No matter how small or big the importance is within each episode of the season, there's this overarching story that goes on within each season. But in this season, it just feels like a bunch of random episodic events happening. There's no overarching thing going on. I don't know what the last episode is going to be about. It just feels like it's just bunch of random episodes for a bunch of random episodes' sake. Just having episodic stuff isn't a bad thing, but at this point is leaving more questions than answers. I need some answers to stuff that were set up within the previous seasons that we're just not getting in season 5. But if I'm looking at this as just, a standalone episode, not taking in any of season 5's issues itself, I think this episode's really good. I honestly do. Overall, what else can I really say? Turkeys tried to take over America. This definitely isn't the craziest Rick and Morty could have gotten with the concept of Thanksgiving, but it was good nonetheless. The dynamics of the characters in here were back to how they were during season 3. Rick and the president specifically, so I'm glad that instead of giving us an episode like the finale of season 3, where Rick and the president were just fighting and one-upping each other for the entire time, this one had them join forces halfway through to defeat a common enemy. If you're wondering if you should watch this episode or not, yes, I really enjoyed this episode for what it was. To be honest, the past 2 episodes kinda had a nice consistent feel to them, so I really enjoyed that. The only problem I had is that we're quickly approaching the last episode of the season, and I have yet to see a clear goal to reach by the end of the season, or at least some development to be made by that point. But yeah, that's basically it. I really hope you enjoyed this. Did you like this episode of Rick and Morty, season 5, episode 6? I myself really enjoyed it. I'm not necessarily a Thanksgiving holiday type of person. Yeah, the food's nice. Yeah. But what else do you do during Thanksgiving? I have no idea. That's literally all I know about. Like, the food's nice. Yeah. Pilgrims and turkeys in it, I guess. As one of the episodes I was anticipating the most, this was great. It was really great. Nothing drove the plot forward at all, but as a Power Rangers and Voltron fan, I really liked this. This was literally everything to me. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and talk about this episode. Let's go ahead and discuss this episode. The concept of this episode surrounds Rick finally finishing his Gotron pieces. He can finally become obsessed with creating the most gigantic robot of all time, yada yada yada. Morty is literally the only person in the family against it. The only person through all the other dimensions they got to help them out against it. He's the only person against it, and Summer is the person that's edging Rick on during this situation. I really like this episode. I mean, mainly for the Power Rangers and Voltron stuff, but also it put the family dynamic into question. Morty kinda knows when enough is enough for Rick. Rick, you had your fun, it's time to put your toys up, do not become obsessed with this. But Summer doesn't really know when enough is enough, and she really wanted that love, really wanted that validation from Rick in this episode. They also mentioned this Rick and Morty being C-137 Rick and Morty, which throws all of the theories that I've been saying by this might not being the dimensions Rick and Morty that we've been following this whole time. Throws all those theories out the window. Just get out of here. This has been the same Rick and Morty for the entire time. So it puts into question now, why are they continuously relearning the same stuff that they have always been for the past 5 seasons? But, I mean, you can't just say it's because it's episodic, but still, I'm going to ask the question regardless. Even the giant incest sperm baby is brought up within this episode and even brought there to help stop the robots. And Summer even named it Naruto, I guess, since, there was a lot of anime people in here, and Voltron's an anime, and of course Naruto is one of the most popular anime, so of course you name a kid with orange hair Naruto, even though Naruto has blonde hair, I guess. I mean, he has an orange jumpsuit, so, whatever. This episode really felt like let's make a lot of references as possible, because even the Ricks that were brought in here all looked like references to different classic gangster films of the past. Although I do feel overwhelmingly positive about this episode, this does tell me that the creators do not want you to think anything more of this story than it just being a funny comedy sci-fi sitcom. That's all they want you to think about this story. They want you to come in, sit down, watch it, maybe laugh and chuckle at the haha sex jokes, and leave. That's all they want you to do. They just want you to laugh and have a good time. Which isn't a bad thing. It isn't a bad thing in the slightest. But if this is the idea that you wanted, you shouldn't have made Season 3 what it was. That's all I'm going to say. You shouldn't have made Season 3 what it was. Other than that, you can keep doing what you're doing. I generally don't mind it. But I know there's a good bit of your fan base that does. Overall, this episode was great. Of course, me being the nerd that I am, I enjoyed every reference to big robots fighting monsters that we could get. Rick and Morty were originally planning on going to Boob World, I think, at first, which I think is a reference to the classic Space Dandy's restaurant Boobies. But that idea, for a place isn't that hard to come up with. The characters all felt like themselves within this episode as well. Nobody felt over the top or dramatic or out of place. Well, I think besides a few Jerry lines, he kind of broke the fourth wall a couple of times and made some self-referential jokes, but that's about it. If you're wondering if you should watch this episode, yes, I enjoyed it for what it was. An easy way to make me get into your show and praise it is obviously making anime and Power Ranger references. Once you do that, I'm 100% on board for whatever you do next. But that's basically it. What are your opinions on this episode? I'd really like to know. Tell me in the comments down below, and I like having a chat with you guys. Tell me what you thought about this episode. Tell me what you think about Season 5 as a whole overall. It's almost finished. I think only 3 episodes left. Are you guys excited to finally get on another journey? Because I kinda am at this point. But yeah, did you like the fact that they brought the sperm baby back? Did you like the fact that, I don't know, this is a lot of Voltron references, right? Yeah. Did you like any of that? By far, this is the best episode. Like, once more seasons come out and people think back about Season 5, this will probably be the episode that they remember this season for. This is the highlight of Season 5. This right here is the best episode that we are going to get in this season, I believe. Every time Bird Person comes back every season, I completely forget he exists, and then I see him like, oh yeah, that guy. As long-term storytelling, guys, it 100% is, I promise. This is like the 3rd week in a row where we have had really good episodes. 4 weeks that we've had episodes that I'm okay with sitting down and watching. So, clapping it up. Season 5 has been picking it up towards the end. Kind of just like Season 4 did. They're picking it up towards the end. Just clap it up for you guys. It's just a really good episode. So, let's go ahead and talk about it. The concept of this episode consists of Rick going into Bird Person's unconscious brain, trying to bring his consciousness back to reality, trying to bring him back to life. He even has help from a Rick that's inside of his head. OMG. This is one of those episodes that reference stuff that started way back in Season 1. We've known Bird Person for so long, and each time you see him, you respect this character more and more. Their relationship is an interesting one because Rick is more of the, dangerous, outgoing, crazy type of person, while Bird Person is more of the calm, collected, monotone, and serious type of person. It's a very weird dynamic, but, it works. It's been proven to work. Bird Person gets to show some more of his wild side when around Rick, but not too wild to the point where it enables Rick like we saw in the previous episode with Summer. Bird Person knows his limits and knows what he should and shouldn't do, unlike Rick, where, in his head nothing really matters. You see examples of this throughout the entire episode through memories of Bird Person where he has of him and Rick. One being of this battle where Rick really enjoyed himself, he really had fun, so he ends up going on this huge spiel about the dimensions, blah 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 blah. All of this things has already happened in multiple dimensions, and some they just haven't happened and they won't happen. And he tries to get Bird Person to go on this adventure with him, and Bird Person refuses. He said no. Another example of this is at the end where Rick has to reveal to Bird Person that he has a kid that he had no idea about. which is the reason Bird Person ends up deciding to stay alive. Once they're finally out and have made it out alive, he asks Rick if he was reluctant to tell him because he would rather go on adventures with him instead of Bird Person try to go off and raise his kid, which Rick says yes, it was true. Yeah, obviously it was true. And Bird Person ends up just flying away. Maybe to be seen from again, maybe not. Maybe we'll never see him again, ever. Who really knows? This episode, well, it felt kind of perfect in every way. I don't think there's going to be another episode in this season that can top this. Well, depending on the finale, they normally like to go big on the finale, but I still don't think there's going to be an episode that can top this because they haven't been building anything up to, have a finale about anything. Overall, this episode is the episode that I was asking for within this season. Callbacks, references, and an episode that matters and drives the overall plot forward. It'll be interesting to see if Bird Person does come out later in the seasons or if he really wants nothing to do with Rick anymore. I do have a question though. How quick do bird people age? Because this kid did not seem as young as she should be. Unless, there's been some years since she was born. I have no idea about because Bird Person had no idea she was a thing. So how do I know when she was born exactly? There was one thing that was said that kinda shocked me within this episode. The younger Rick in Bird Person's mind was disgusted to find out that the future version of himself is in a dimension where a version of his deceased daughter is alive. His Beth is dead? What? Like miscarriage dead? Or like someone killed the wife and kid kinda dead when she was still a baby? I think I need answers to that. I don't remember this ever being a thing within the previous seasons. Please tell me if I'm wrong in the comments down below because I'd really like to know. I think the only reference I remember to there is the season 3 premiere, but it was shown to just be like a hoax to the people trying to figure out something in Rick's mind, if I'm remembering correctly. If you're wondering if you should watch this episode or not, please do. This is the best episode of this season by far, so genuinely watch this if you have yet to watch this episode or this season in general. Put this episode on that list. Just do it. But that's basically it. It's been so many cuts. I've had to take so many lines over and over again, but I finally did it. So what did you guys think of this episode? Please tell me in the comments down below. If you have some answers to the questions that I've asked in here, tell me in the comments down below. Give it a little like. Tell me, how do you predict the finale of season 5 to be? Because I still have no idea how it's gonna end. I genuinely, I don't know what they could do for a finale. I genuinely don't know. Should it be something big? Should it be something small? Can it be something big? The only thing they could do is have somebody come back and capture Rick. That's the only thing I could imagine a finale being at this point, right? Right? I know they've did that already, but that's the only thing I can imagine them doing, right? I don't know. So the original concept for this video was to do the season 5 finale review, but because of my mental, it was taking a bit too long to record and just wasn't in the right place, honestly speaking. Now we're just gonna do the season 5 review. Surprisingly enough, the finale itself changed my opinions on season 5, so I'm very excited to talk about this. I'm very excited to go over the fullness of season 5 as a whole. I have been through a lot, and I mean a lot of ups and downs with this season. But honestly speaking, the way it ended, overall, I'm pretty happy with it. But at the same time, I feel like this season itself is the most random assortment of episodic episodes we've had in a long time for Rick and Morty. So let's talk about it. Season 5 started off pretty weird to say the least. I'd be lying to you guys if I told you that I liked the first episode. I still do not like the first episode at all. But I feel like my opinion's in a minority for that, especially since Mr. Nimbus ended up becoming a meme and used a lot on Twitter, especially by people like Nuxtaku. But still, even looking back at it, I just hate that the whole episode is just one big sex joke. And we even see that again in this season with the infamous sperm episode. If I had to compare this season to any other season that Rick and Morty has done, obviously I will compare it to season 4 of Rick and Morty, except it's even worse because at least season 4 had the clone Beth story to give us answers to by the end. There was no hint of a story to follow within season 5, so much so that I didn't know what the finale was going to be about. I told you guys, I had no clue what the finale would be about. There was no hints towards the entire thing, except for, I guess, episode 8. If I had to say anything about this season, it would be that this season kind of exuded the pros and cons that Rick and Morty has kind of showed us throughout its lifetime. The pros being jokes going too far, parody episodes, and good storytelling whenever they want to. Cons being jokes going too far, sex jokes, not carrying over the story from the previous season, and honestly kinda resetting the characters whenever they want to in an episode. Because there was a good few times in this season where I and a couple of hardcore fans speculated that this might not be the C-137 Rick and Morty that we've been following for the whole time, but that quickly got debunked later on when they referred to this Rick and Morty as C-137's Rick and Morty. It's highly unlikely, but if any writers for Rick and Morty are watching this video right now, nobody, and I mean nobody, has any problems with episodic episodes at all. The only issue is, at least finish the story you were telling first before switching to a whole season full of episodic episodes. That's my only problem. I'm gonna get into this in a later video, but I feel like saying this right now because I feel like it holds some weight. Solar Opposites is an episodic show, and I fucking love that show so much. I really do. I just saw it. It's amazing. That's a good show that does episodic stuff in a good way. So just finish the story first, and if you want to do episodic stuff, it's fine, but finish the story you were telling first. That's all you had to do. While I did say this season is worse than season 4 because there's no actual story to follow within this season, I will say that when it comes to episodes that I enjoyed, I did like this season more. There were more episodes that I enjoyed in here than in season 4. One weird thing about this season is that they brought back a lot of stuff that worked within season 3, which again, season 3 came out in 2017. Stuff like Rick and the President's rivalry, which was resolved at the end of season 3, but it's fine to bring that back if you want something else for the characters to do. It doesn't really hurt any characters that much that you bring that rivalry back. And the other thing that was brought back was Evil Morty, and I'm completely fine with that because we got a really, really good ass finale with Evil Morty's return. Oh my god. If I had to say one overall positive about Rick and Morty, it's that each season finale, or most season finales, are these spectacle must-watch events that, I don't know, you just had to watch, and this is no exception. The ending not only gave us a conclusion to a character we haven't seen since 2017, which I would have liked to see more of, but you know, I'm happy we at least get to see the conclusion of a story. It also gave us some answers to some questions we had regarding Rick's origins, and I fucking loved it. This finale was the first two-parter special that Rick and Morty did, and honestly, it was really good. They flowed into each other quite nicely, leaving the end of episode 9 unanswered and carrying it over to be answered within episode 10. Amazing. Spectacularly amazing. It focused on the unhealthy and unmanageable relationship between Rick and Morty that they have had throughout this entire series. So, just good job. A pluses on all ends. You have all the gold stars right now with this finale. Even the questions that were answered are stuff that I never thought we would get answers to. Like stuff regarding Rick's origins, stuff regarding Rick's wife. Like what? I don't want to get into too much detail because you're just gonna have to watch that for yourself. But again, this is something that we haven't gotten any clue about since season 3. I mean, I guess we got some clues about it in episode 8, but we haven't got any clues about this since I think episode 1 of season 3, where these creatures were trying to get into Rick's head to find out like the serum for the portal gun or something. So yeah, it's just very interesting that we're finally getting answers to these questions. Personally, I was feeling really sour towards this season up until the bird person episode and the finale came out. I don't know, I just wasn't excited for any more of the episodes to come out. I was feeling like I was being too cynical, too negative, and the season just wasn't doing anything for me personally. Like, I could have got better stuff from other places. I feel like my time was being wasted. So believe me when I say the title makes so much sense to me, because the finale literally saved Rick and Morty, like no joke. Overall, season 5 had a lot of ups and downs that you can look at my opinions about on my Rick and Morty videos playlist that I've recently made. The only worrisome I have about this season is that there isn't going to be any growth that occurs from here to season 6 whenever that comes out. That happened when coming from season 4 to season 5. Besides one random scene and maybe a throwaway line, there was no reference to Clone Beth. She should have stayed around the end of season 4, which would have been cool and changed the family dynamic like they love doing at the end of every season. But that's fine. I could not have asked for a better ending for this average season. This ending made this season so much better than it was being up until that point. If you are wondering if this season is worth watching or not, as a whole, I would say yes. There are some episodes that are misses and skips, but it's only 10 episodes. Like, you can watch shows in one sitting and not feel like your time was wasted that much, unless you really like doing stuff. Yeah, I'd say watch this. But that's basically it. What are your opinions on Rick and Morty season 5 as a whole? I've stated my opinion so much so far this season. Felt kinda average up until episode 8, I'm gonna be honest. There were some highlights within here, obviously speaking. The Voltron episode comes to mind. I think the episode where there were just a bunch of Rick and Mortys and killing other Rick and Mortys and stuff, that was a good episode as well. And yeah, but other than that, it was just an average season that was saved by really good ending episodes. So yeah, tell me your thoughts about season 5. I'll try to reply to the comments as quickly as possible, or just reply to them eventually. I know I can be a bit slow sometimes, so I'll reply to them when I can. Of course, it's fine for our opinions to differ. I really just like having comments in here. It's just really fun to have discussions with different people about topics that I'm actually into. So yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys around next time. Goodbye.